Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Ventures. On the program today, we're going to be taking a look at African prints and African designs, especially batik and tie and dye. Recently, there has been a renaissance in the love for African prints, especially with the advent of the movie Wakanda. A lot of young people around the world have taken interest in African motifs. Do stay with us as we talk to someone who specializes in this particular brand of clothing. Don't go away. Welcome to Ventures. And with me in the studio is Rosemary Akwashiki. Rosemary specializes in clothing with batik and tie-dye.
So my company, Rosemary Akwashiki Limited, is, well, first and foremost, the company that was set up, right? Not just for the purpose of making clothing, but we also saw it as an opportunity to actually also empower you, women and youths. We felt, it was important to have, a fashion brand that would use everything indigenous to Nigeria. So that was why we chose tie-dye batik, of course, which we all call Adire. The company started in 2020, and so far so good. It's been awesome. It's been challenging, especially getting raw materials, getting materials and all of that. But I would say we've been able to, manage so far so good.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you make your clothes. Do the fabric? You make your own fabric yourself?
Basically, when I started, right, initially I would buy fabrics from other producers in
Okay.
Lagos.
Okay.
But along the line, I started having the challenge of them giving me what I wanted. And, it happened so many times that I had to return fabrics, or, customers would call and complain about the fabrics that was made to used to make their outfits. So I had to go back to the drawing board and, learned how to do it myself. Now, when I started making it myself, I also now face the challenge of, not getting the same texture of fabric all the time. So I had to then try to source for a place where I could actually, make sure that if I wanted, for example, 1,000 yards of fabric, I was sure getting 1,000 yards of, textile. So of course, I was able to get that here in Nigeria.
So you make your fabric from scratch,
Yes.
and then you sew. Do you have a ready to wear line?
Yes, have a namesake ready to wear line called Rosemary Akwashiki as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So we make everything, from our fabrics. We use our fabrics really. We customize our fabrics, and we produce ourselves.
So what is your staff strength?
Okay, so before now, right, I had a staff strength of like 10 people. But along the line, of course, after COVID, and then with, early this year, the challenges of, power, national grid, and all of that, we realized that, our overhead cost was really, really high. We had to change the model of our business. We had to restructure. Changing the model of our business meant we had to stop doing our bespoke tailoring. I moved out of the premises where I was, and, moved to another office which I had for another business. So I had to downsize. So most of my staff at this point are actually on contract basis. So the good thing about ready to wear is you don't need to produce all the time, right? So I outsource my pattern drafting. Then I have my tailors who work for me when there's a need.
How difficult or easy is what you're doing? If you say we're doing a difficulty rating from 1 to 10, what would you say the scale would be?
Well, I'll probably put it at 8 or 9. The truth is that no business is easy. I've learned that nothing is easy, right? In fact, like, let's take modeling for instance. I used to think modeling was easy until I had to do a proper photo shoot for my products, and I realized that, what, you see those people that were standing there in the outfits, what they
Yeah.
were doing wasn't easy at all. Over time, I think have learned to manage the challenges I face. So that has made it a bit easier. It's not, we are not there yet. For example, um, when I started the brand, the first collection I had, right, I had the challenge. It was very, very difficult getting my production materials. For example, something as simple as the lining we had to use for the clothes. We couldn't get, the good quality ones we wanted. We went everywhere. I sent to Aba. We went everywhere. It was very, very difficult. So you would have this very nice outfit you make, and then after a while you see that the lining is
It's
ripping
yeah.
because and but what I did, I learned from that. So the next collection, I had to design. I decided to make outfits and use fabrics that I didn't need to line.
Do you believe that there's a big market out there for what you're doing?
Yes, there is a big market out there for what I'm doing. When I started the business, my dream had always been to, have a proper garment manufacturing company. Now, abroad, we have Dorothy Perkins, we have Next, we have all the brands
Brands.
we know. But in Nigeria, you find out that you really don't have those brands, right? What we have are a lot of us small, small fashion designers all struggling to do our bespoke and all of that. So even though I had started with bespoke tailoring, I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And for me, I felt, April this year, I felt the time was right for me to let it go and focus on my ready to wear business. The good thing is that with our fabrics now, you realize that you're not just making the whole traditional outfit for weddings or to wear to church anymore.
Yes.
You can actually make, clothes that with African prints that you can wear for parties, you can wear, to work and all of that. So they are comfortable, they are everyday outfits. So it has become acceptable, and Nigerian designers are doing really, really well, and our products are becoming more acceptable all over the world. So,
Okay. So let's talk about skills in the industry, skills and manpower in the industry.
it's getting better than it used to. Initially, it was difficult, to get people who were quite skilled, right? You had the artisans, most of the tailors then, who were not, of course, their level of education was probably from primary to secondary school and all of that. So, and one of the skills most of them had was, like in fashion, or rather in tailoring, there are two methods for producing outfits. Either you do what we call the freehand
Cutting and
cutting, or you do the pattern drafting, which is what you find in other areas in the world. Over time, we have learned how to draft patterns, and that makes things a lot easier, right? So you make clothes that would easily fit now, unlike before where you do freehand and you have to do the trial and error
error.
and people have to come and so with the patterns, I can actually cut a lot of fabrics at the same time. And also you see a lot of people, there are now a lot of fashion schools, people are learning, people are training, people are learning finishing skills, so it's easier. The only challenge though is that you realize everybody who is learning wants to set up their business. So at the end of the day, you actually don't even have the people to
People who are
employ.
stay, who are
It's
steady,
people
as
to employ,
going,
because
yes,
everybody that goes to fashion school now wants
wants
to
to
set
set
up.
up.
Yeah. So
Yeah, this also cuts across board in many of the other industries in
exactly.
Nigeria. From all the people I've spoken with, it's difficult to keep a steady hand.
Yeah,
Once
it is.
people become experts, they
Mm-hmm.
want to branch out and do stuff on
Exactly.
their own. All right. So do you have an association of people in the design industry, and how has that helped maybe to keep
Okay.
uh, quality and standards in check?
Okay, so in the industry, we have FADAN, that's Fashion Designers Association of Nigeria, and then we have AVTEC. I'm a member of AVTEC. I won't say at this point, you have a firm association that tries to control what we do. And of course, people have we've had meetings, we've had, series of talks, but Not it's not something that I would probably say that, oh, these people are in charge and we've been able to put something concrete down yet. No. So everybody is just still just on their own, doing their own thing and just trying to make sure that, as a brand, what are your values, what are you trying to put out there. So it's more or less an individual thing at this point in time.
All right. So we've been talking to Rosemary Akwashiki. When we come back in a bit, she's going to tell us give us a little personal information about herself. Don't go anywhere. So tell us a little bit about your background. What did you major in?
Okay, so I actually studied mass communication. Um, I graduated from State University, and then after my youth service, I served here in Abuja. I served with Business Day newspaper, worked with them for a few months, and then moved to the IT sector. I worked with Startech Communications as at the time, and then moved to the financial sector, worked with First Bank and FinBank, that's now FCMB. Yeah, before I left and started the family, and then um, I took off time really from work, to start a family. Got married. I have two kids, a boy and a girl, and yeah. So in 2016, yeah, no, 2014 actually, I went into um, fashion. Went to a fashion school, did the basic and advanced class, and from there, right, I started my fashion business in 2016. First, as a partnership with one of my friends and colleagues then who works with me. But then along the line, 2 years down the line, well, the business packed up and then I started from scratch again. So
What motivates you to carry on? What makes you want to be an entrepreneur in an environment like ours?
would I say I was born into a family where both parents were entrepreneurs? My dad is a pediatrician, he's a medical doctor. Um, he started his private practice, then in the defunct Benue Plateau, he was with Plateau State Hospital, and then when Benue State was created, he moved to Makurdi in 1978, and then he opened his private practice. And my mom, of course, the businesswoman, so she always had always run her business. Most of my siblings, there are seven of us, I'm the last, and every one of them, even those who have, regular jobs, all have their businesses. So I would say he runs my
The
family.
family.
Yeah, so
Wow, okay.
we are all, into entrepreneurship
Entrepreneurship,
and
yeah.
all of that. And then, of course, despite the challenges, right? For me, what keeps me going is, I guess, is the passion I have for the business. Yeah, I know they say passion doesn't pay the bills,
Bills,
but
yeah.
so I actually still do some other things by the side. I have other businesses by the side, but I would always say my first love is fashion. My dad is 83. He turned
Wow.
83 October this year. But
Congratulations.
thank you. But he still works, and then he's still starting new business ventures. And I always tell myself, so what's the excuse?
There's no excuse for you
So
then.
there's no excuse really.
So how big do you think this industry can get?
Nigerian fashion designers are becoming more and more popular. not just in Nigeria, but all over the world. I think for me that was one of the reasons why when I decided to start this brand, um, I actually had started a brand before, but I decided to rebrand and use my name because I was like, okay, so if we have the Vera Wangs and the
The
Louis
yeah,
Vuitton and all
yes,
of that, why not have a Rosemary Akwashiki from Nigeria?
yes.
And imagine if the brand goes global, and then you have a name like that, a recognized designer all
Yes.
over the world, then you'll probably be having one as well from Nigeria. So I see the fashion industry, growing very, very large. Nigerian fashion designers are doing really well, and I think we haven't even scratched the surface yet.
When we talk about international brands, as you have mentioned,
Yeah.
what's extraordinary thing are they doing? What is making those brands flourish way above what we do here in Nigeria?
Okay, I think number one, they have the skills. They have the skills. Um, Then, of course, they have the infrastructure. The truth is, the average ready-to-wear brand in Nigeria, you want to produce, cost of production is very, very high. So you're now struggling to compete, especially when they have things, bringing in things from China and all of that. How do you compete with that, right? We don't have the basic infrastructures, we don't have the power, we don't have the machineries, we don't have access to materials. Imagine when the price of dollar goes up, of course, everything goes up. Um, Initially, some of the materials we use, let's say, for example, we have what we call hairstay. I used to buy that for 300 naira. That was less than a year ago. Right now, it goes for between 800 to 1,000. So how are you supposed to cope? How are you supposed to manage? Right? So it's difficult, really, very, very difficult, to be able to compete with those over there. And then the typical Nigerian designer as well wants to be able to do everything. I want to sew, I want to do my patterns, I want to do my illustration, but we don't realize that in fashion, there are different job responsibilities, there are different roles. You don't need to do everything. If you have the people, right, then you can actually outsource. You can actually have somebody handling these responsibilities, somebody handling another responsibility, and then you're able to pull your strengths together. But in Nigeria, we want to do it all, so it's always a challenge, and then at the end of the day, we don't realize it's actually a disadvantage rather than being an
But
advantage.
I also find that from some of the interviews I've done and from what you're saying, this desire to do everything is like a knee-jerk reaction to some of the things that come at you when you're doing business by yourself. When you talk about inflation, when you talk about the cost of doing business, when you talk about taxes, when you talk about registration, when you talk about the multiple levels of what come at you, then people tend to want to do everything as a cost reducing factor. Do you, do you agree?
Yes, I agree. However, one of the things I have done is, rather than have those people as a full-time staff, I outsource. Do you understand? So I don't need to keep them on a permanent payroll. I only outsource, and when I need their services, they work on contract basis. You come, you do it for me, and you leave. Or you don't even need to come. I can just send it to you. You do what you
Yes.
have to. So you can outsource. Sometimes you need that expertise, especially when it's not even your area of strength, and you realize that you're able to actually do more, right? When you're able to outsource than having to do everything yourself.
When we want to go international, we talk about exhibitions and all that. You've been to a few exhibitions,
Yes.
and I understand that you were in an exhibition in Gambia recently. Tell us
Yes.
about the effect of exhibitions and specifically the one you just went to in Gambia.
Okay. So one of the things I've learned from going for exhibitions, right? A lot of times people think, oh, I'm going for an exhibition, I just want to go and sell. But it's not necessarily about making sales that day, right? You want to network, you want to get contacts, you want to see what they have in the market and all of that. So, speaking of Gambia, while we were in Gambia, right, I realized that the Gambians really didn't have as much buying power, right, as compared to Nigerians. I sold my products, yes, and a lot of Nigerians in particular patronized me. The Gambians were interested, but a lot of them didn't have the buying power to buy my products because of the cost. However, I also noticed that there was a gap in terms of, the fashion designers there. They had the idea, they had fantastic designs, but I realized that they also they lacked a few, would I say, um, a few skills in terms of like their finishing skills, how to brand their businesses or their products properly, and all of that. And I saw a gap in that, and I realized that okay, if I can sell the clothes to them, I can sell the services. And we started from there. We started making contacts and all of that. And luckily, I was able to get a contact right with the foundation who um, offers vocational trainings and all of that, empowerment and all of that. And we're in talks with them, and they would want us to come back, to come and train some of their people. So all I needed to do really was identify the need there, and try to create something, to tackle that need. So that was basically what we did. So it wasn't, yeah, I might have not have gotten stockies where I could stock my products and all, but then I saw another avenue which I took advantage of.
And would you say that Nigerian agencies that are in charge of these networks of exhibition, would you say they're doing okay for the fashion industry?
Yes, there are. For me, that was my first exhibition with them, right? I wish they had done more in terms of like maybe covering, of course they tried to cushion the cost of going and all of that, but um, they are trying really. I wouldn't say they are not trying. Before now, nobody really heard about Nigeria Export Promotion Council and all. But you can see that right now they are putting in a lot of efforts, to focus on the non-oil exportable products. And I would say it's working. And not just that, because one of the things they've done is rather than just export commodities and all, we can also export finished products. So you have a lot of people now going into processed foods, going into processed products, and they are exporting. And to be honest, NEPC, Nigeria Export Promotion Council, have been quite supportive.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So one last thing, what you're wearing now, did you make this?
Yes,
So this would be batik or tie-dye?
batik.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is chiffon.
Yes, this is chiffon.
So you could just put a design on chiffon and then make an outfit. This is exactly, you're actually modeling your own product. Yeah, and it looks super on you.
Thank you.
So I want to say thank you so much for sharing your business thoughts with us. And do you have some words of encouragement for people in the industry?
I'll be saying something I already said before. You know what? Don't try to do everything yourself, otherwise you will burn out. Outsource if you have to, and then you know, don't be afraid of sharing information and or sharing your challenges with others. One of the things that has worked for me is that I have like a group of other fashion designers where we share challenges. We're in a group. You have probably a design. You want to draft your patterns. You don't know how. You bring it up. Everybody contributes. And people give you ideas. So don't be an island. As much as possible, network. Um, we are not all in competition. We want to see collaborations and all of that. So just make sure that you have also have the right support system, and it could actually be your colleagues in the same industry.
Thank you so much for coming to Ventures, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. The program has been Ventures. We've been talking to Rosemary Akwashiki. She's a clothier who specializes in batik and tie-dye. This has been the size of our program on Ventures today. You can reach us on my Twitter handle, which is running on the screen, and you can also check out our YouTube channel where you might likely watch this particular edition of the program. Thank you for staying with us. We'll do this again, same time next week. Ventures, we are always celebrating enterprise.